friend. Welcome to the study. It's morning tea here right now. So we have a cup of green tea and we'll probably check some messages, find out the news, the gossip, see what friends are up to. But this being the study, we're not going to do it the normal way. Let's go back to the 18th century. Here we are, in the quieter 18th century. Outside you can hear some birds, and there's a little soft rain falling, and a bit of mist. There are no motor cars, no Wi-Fi, no printers, nothing but nature outside, and our candle inside. Our friends have written us letters that we have in the morning mail. All of this has come with the morning post, as well as some calling cards of some people who have stopped by whilst we were out or busy. We've also got the Gazette for the day's news. And we have a quiet moment just to catch up with correspondence and stop the day's work and worries while we catch up with the rest of the world. Let's start with the Gazette. Saturday, January 7th to Tuesday, January 10th, 1775. This piece is from the 28th of December at the court at St. James' Day. Present the King's most excellent Majesty in council. So our monarch, George III, is on the throne. Whereas His Majesty was pleased by his order in council of the 8th of July, 1772, to direct, amongst other things, that all ships and vessels whatsoever, having cotton wool on board, except ships and vessels from America or the West Indies, with that commodity on board, the produce of those parts, then arrived, or that should thereafter arrive in any part of this kingdom, or in the Isles of Jersey, Guernsey, Alderney, Sark, or Man, should make their quarantine 40 days, which was to commence, and he computed from the day each ship and vessel should come to anchor His Majesty at this board that the continuance of the said quarantine is very detrimental to the commerce of His Majesty's subjects, and more particularly to the manufactures carried out in the county of Lancaster, His Majesty taking the same into consideration, and deeming it no longer necessary for the public safety that all ships and vessels whatsoever having cotton wool on board should be subject to the rules of quarantine, is pleased, with the advice of his Privy Council, to order that all such ships and vessels not coming from any of the ports or places from whence quarantine is required to be performed, be permitted to land their respective cargoes without opening and airing, and without any restraint on account of quarantine. And the Right Honourable Lords Commissioners of His Majesty's Treasury, the Commissioners for executing the office of Lord High Admiral of Great Britain, the Lord Warden, Master General of the Ordnance, His Majesty's Secretary at War, and the Governors or Commanders-in-Chief for the time being of said respective Isles of Jersey, Guernsey, Alderney, Sark, Man, are to give the necessary directions herein, as to them may respectively appertain. Stephen Cottrell. Well, it's nice to see quarantine being lifted, and produce and merchandise returning. There, to refill our teacup. And now we have another interesting piece. Petersburg, December 13th. The Empress was so much indisposed on Sunday last that she could not appear in public on that day, nor did the Knights of the Order of St. Andrew, whose festival it was, dine at court as usual, but in the evening there was a ball, at which their Imperial Highnesses, the Great Duke and Duchess, were present. The Empress is now so far recovered as to be able to appear at the Court Theatre this evening. Well, that is good news. The Russian Empress has recovered from her illness, and festivities will resume. Next, something from Germany. Dresden, December 14th. The present winter is the coldest and severest that has been known in Saxony since the year 1740. Hard weather seldom beginning in this country before Christmas or the 6th of January. But this year it began to freeze on the 11th of November last, and has gradually increased till within these 3 days, when the air grew milder. The Elbe has been shut and frozen up these 3 weeks, so that no wood can come down the river, as usual, from Bohemia, nor are the mills able to work. And there being but 2 windmills in the neighbourhood of Dresden, bread and wood is excessively dear. There is at present a deep snow on the ground. Sounds like a very difficult winter in Dresden. Let's hope we hear from our friend in Germany. We have news from Sweden as well. Stockholm, December 16th. The symptoms of Prince Frederick's disorder have been more favourable for some days, and His Royal Highness appears to be on the recovery. Well, that's another monarch we don't have to worry about. We've got enough of our own problems here. Portugal, Porto, December 16th. On Sunday last, the 11th instant, this river rose 15 feet perpendicular in about 7 hours, filling the streets near the quays on both sides. Many warehouses were thrown down. Pipes of wine and various other merchandises were carried away, and in some places the inhabitants had but just time to escape at the tops of the houses. On Monday the torrent was extremely rapid. About 1 o'clock the ship Kirby Hall, James George, master, with only 1 man on board, laden with 262 pipes of wine for London, and ready to sail, was forced from her moorings, and in a few minutes dashed to pieces on the bar. However, by the courage and skill of the pilots at St. John's, the man was saved. Well, that is grave news. I do hope that our wine supply here will not be affected too deeply. At night the following ships were driven over the bar. Oh dear, now we have the damages. The George Magson, master, from Carolina with rice, bound to Topsham, and had 110 pipes of wine on board. The Bacchus George Hill, master, from Hull, with sundry merchandises, bound to Hull, with 107 pipes of wine on board. The Amelia Hugh Stevenson, master, from Quebec, with wheat, bound to Bristol. And a Portuguese ship called the St. John, evangelist, João Pinto da Rocha, master, bound to Bahia, laden and valued at between 30 and 40,000 pounds. This last struck on a sand near the bar, where she still remains. On Tuesday night the torrent abated, and though the stream still runs with great rapidity, boats begin to pass. Some rushes here have been known as high as this, but they have always hitherto come on gradually, none having ever been known so violent and so sudden. The losses are very considerable in wine, sugar, ships, houses, and merchandise of all sorts, though no certain calculation can as yet be made of the amount. However, we do not hear that any lives have been lost. His Britannic Majesty's Consul has taken the necessary measures for the recovery of such parts of the wrecks and merchandise as can be found in order to their being restored to the owners. Something from Denmark. Let's hope for some optimistic news for a change. Copenhagen, December 24th. The mail from England of the 6th instant arrived today. The ice that filled this harbour having been loosened, partly by the thaw and partly by the labour of 900 men, who were employed for several days. 67 ships which were in the road and in the offing have been enabled to come into the harbour, and a great number long detained here by the ice have got out and proceeded on their voyages. Good news there then for shipping. Oh, something from Berlin, the Prussian capital. Berlin, December 27. His Prussian Majesty having been indisposed on Saturday last. What is it with all of these royals being ill and indisposed? There must have been some secret party, and they've all got hangovers. Did not appear on Sunday at his levee, nor dine as usual with the Queen and the royal family, but yesterday was so well as to have company both at dinner and supper. And today His Majesty is said to be perfectly recovered. Whitehall, January 10th. The King has been pleased to appoint Guy Carleton, Esquire, to be Captain General and Governor-in-Chief of His Majesty's province of Quebec in America. Well, that is interesting news about Quebec, is it not? St. James, January 10th, 1775. Whereas it has been humbly represented to the King that since the first day of December past, some wicked and malicious performs have several times in the night entered into the marshlands, situate in the different levels of popular in the county of Middlesex, and the representative levels of, what is that? Plaistow, East Ham, West Ham, Barking, and Ripley, in the county of Essex, and have saleniously killed, maimed, and destroyed 40 fat sheep by stabbing them in their necks and maiming them in different parts of their bodies, for the purpose of stealing their fat, and thereby so mangled the said sheep that they could not be offered to sale. What a terribly awful thing to happen. His Majesty, for the better discovering and bringing to justice the perpetrators of such wicked and malicious crimes, is hereby pleased to promise his most gracious pardon to any of the persons concerned therein, who shall discover his accomplice or accomplices in the same, so that, missing a word there, he, she, or they may be apprehended and convicted thereof. Suffolk. Well, I do hope they catch all of them. And as a further encouragement, we, John Cook of High Street, Whitechapel, Butcher, and William Worth of Cannon Street, Butcher, do hereby promise a reward of £50 to any person making such discovery as aforesaid, the said reward to be paid by us on the conviction of any one or more of the offenders. John Cook, William Worth. Well, good for them. And now we have something from Ireland. Irish turntime. The subscribers to the life annuities established in Ireland, who are to be paid in London, may receive 1 year's annuity due on the 25th day of December last by applying to the Messrs. Brown and Collinson Bunkers in Lombard Street on the following days from 9 in the forenoon till 2, in the afternoon. The first class, the 23rd and 24th of this instant January, the second on the 25th, 26th, 27th, and 28th ditto. The debutante to be produced and a certificate of the list of nominees, the form of which may be had by applying as above. So our interesting happenings there in the Gazette. Now we have customs list from Customs House, Edinburgh, in pursuance of the direction of the Right Honourable Lord Commissioners of His Majesty's Treasury. And then, of course, the list of all of the people having fled and wanted for bankruptcy and debt. But here we have something from South Sea House that might be interesting. January 10th, 1775. The Court of Directors of the South Sea Company give notice that a general court election will be held at this house on Tuesday, the 31st. That might or might not be interesting depending on what happens this year. We are expecting at some point that knave Cook to return from the South Seas with his 2 ships. And all of the complaints of creditors as well. I wonder if there's anyone we know who should report to King's Bench Prison, Northgate, Chester. Thomas Johnson, Richard Walker, Samuel Nichols, Benjamin Green. I don't see any of our friends on that list, luckily. Shall we have a look and see who stopped by? Have some more tea, of course. Let's see. Josiah Wedgwood, F.R.S. Josiah Wedgwood is an older man of our acquaintance, fellow of the Royal Society, industrialist, but one with very high ideals. He has some very, very good ideas about how to treat workers, and he has some very firm ideas about abolishing slavery, which is gaining impetus. A very forward-thinking man, and a very nice man too. It's a pleasure to have his acquaintance. G. Cavendish, Duchess of Devonshire. That will be Georgiana, who was last year married and became Duchess of Devonshire. She turns 18 this year. She might be planning her party. Madame Schwellenborg. I can't say that I regret not being available when she called. I wonder what she wants. Very outspoken woman, but a lady who knows her mind. She is perhaps one of the Queen's best confidants. Let's see what we have in the mail. Nice big fat ones, all addressed to Secret Scholar. first. A few postmarks on it. Looks like it came from Germany. Afraid I've made a hash of that. But oh well. Oh, we've got something enclosed as well. This should be very, very good. Berlin, January 1775. Dear Secret Scholar, I have finally returned to my vibrant city, Berlin, from my year in Weimar. I met so many interesting people while studying there. I must tell you all about them sometime. First, you remember that sad book we read by Jürgen's friend, the author Johann Goethe. It was about the young man Werther and his lost love. I think everyone can feel what he did, as everyone knows the pain of lost love. Well, it has an ever-increasing following, and none more so than in Weimar, where it has now been banned. Oh dear, a banned book. I own a banned book. That's quite exciting. I was lucky that I have my own copy. The one we read together. There is a delightful cafe culture here, and it is where all of the students spend their time philosophizing, debating, and comparing notes on life, literature, politics, and love. That sounds divine, doesn't it? To be able to meet your friends and talk about all kinds of things. So it goes on. I, being among them, have grown fond of their doggedness to unveil life's mysteries through camaraderie and discussion, and of course, good food and drink. That sounds like our friend, doesn't it? We even have our own student almanac published locally to rival that of the students at Göttingen, whose almanac we read at our meetings and critique. I enclose some pages. Guess which poem is Jürgen's? Oh, that will be interesting. I've missed the last page. I must close now, but hope to be back in the spring, so that we can go to the theatre together and enjoy some of the beautiful flowers that this long winter will no doubt have conjured. Alles Gute wünscht dir dein P. What a nice letter. Let's have a look at these pages from the student journal. said that one of these will be Jürgen's poem that he contributed. Our buddy. This one is about a sled ride, ein Schlittenfahrt. Ach, ich sah, wie ihr Schlitten winterschnell vorbeigeglitten. In dem ganzen langen Rhein sah ich ihren nur allein. Vor den Silberglöckchen allen hört ihre nur erschaffen, aber trauervoll und lang. Könnte mir ihr Silberklang dieses Herz, das ich besessen, wird es meiner nicht vergessen, lachte sie dem Jüngling nicht mit vergnügtem Angesicht. It's a love story. O ihr schneebedeckten Höhen, wo ich sie zuerst gesehen, stimmt in meinen Klagenton, die vergaß am nächsten schon. In dem Schnee auf tiefen Auen soll man ihren Namen schauen, unter tiefer Herznobein grab ich 100-mal ihn ein, aber bald wird er vergehen, Minde werden ihn verwehen. Ach, so schwand aus ihren Sinn auch mein Angedenken hin. LM. That couldn't be Jürgen, could it? Really? Unsee to someone whose name begins with C. Die Göttin, the goddess. Seht eine Göttin da, ruft starr, und hat recht. Do you see a goddess there? Says Star, and he is right. Einführen nicht auch von göttlichen Geschlecht. Are not Furies also deities or immortals? And here we have a song, ein Lied. It's quite a long one, and another Minnelied. Ah, this one is Jürgen's. Let's see the Minnelied. Oh, wie schön ist die ich minne. Oh, wie schön an Seel und Leib. It's very sweet, sugary, sweet. Oh, how beautiful it is that I love. Oh, how beautiful it is on the soul and the body. Sometimes the students even write some music and put it in the journals. Let's open another one. This one looks interesting. Oh, and it's got some music on it as well. Nice fat one. does look good. From our theatre friend in London. London, January 1775. My dear secret scholar, winter greetings from the great foggy city. I trust you have enjoyed the season's celebration with good cheer. Christmas was cold one year, and the 12th night merriment was most welcome, as well as lively. The Garrick twins topped the volume of drinking of everyone present, which was, I admit, a feat in itself. But this enabled them to give some quite impromptu, albeit engaging performances of some of the season's pieces, all of which they know by heart, of course. The costumes were equally gay and made for welcome respite from the cold, dark days. But the theatre news, which you are no doubt waiting to read, the height of the season, saw superb performances of that entertaining Hurst, who you might remember played Levantine in Theodosius, and Lysimachus in Alexander the Great, both at Drury Lane last season. Last autumn, I had the pleasure again to see his Cymbeline, after which they did one of your favourite dances, the Sailor's Revels. His Shakespearean roles continued too, with As You Like It and Richard II, and indeed I look forward to seeing him this month in Much Ado About Nothing. But it is his figure that always decides his roles, I expect, as he seems entirely to have enjoyed far too many of the delicious pies from the Rose Tavern. There were quite a few Irish pieces performed too, which was possibly not unintended that they should often happen as main and after pieces together, with even the Irish dances following. Some were very good, and made better by our excellent and tireless actors, some from the Emerald Isle itself. I must tell you that Garrick added a prologue and epilogue to Electra from Voltaire's Oreste, for which Mrs. Gates, you remember, who had been at Covent Garden for these 8 years past, returned to perform on our dear Drury the title role. However, I do not think that our audience welcomed her dull performance. Perhaps they do not enjoy the French dramas as much. I dare say she will return, though. A good part of the season, it must be said, has come from the Pantheon, where we all enjoy the heady masquerades, but also the increasing number of concerts that are performed there. Charles gave us news from Paris about the performance he saw there of Gluck's Iphigenie on Olide before everything closed up, and he came here following the much mourned of their Sun King. He was lucky enough to be guest of Madame M in the Salle du Palais Royal. They are both great admirers of Gluck and of course Racine, and you and I both appreciate the Mycenaean subject matter. It was not greatly popular, but Charles tells me he hears Monsieur Gluck is planning a revision for this year. You must at least hear the overture, for I heard when France's group got hold of the score and played it for us all backstage after one of the Pantheon concerts. Charles tells me it is heard everywhere in Paris now. He has returned to following Twelfth Night revelries. I suspect he spent most of the trip with a hangover. And so, my friend, I wish you a happy new year, and will always hold a place for you at our performances, for when you come, as I know you shall, for a visit, your most humble Prospero. Our theatrical friend in London. And the last one. Look at this. Secret Scholar, the study. It has a ship, seal, wax as well. I know who this is from. This is from our friend in shipping. Let's see if I can open it properly. Dare say it will take a bit. There we are. And we've got an enclosure as well. We'll see what that is. Oh, his tiny handwriting. Portsmouth, January 1775. Dear Secret Scholar, trusting this letter finds you well and comfortable in that marvelous place, the study, where the intellect is ignited, the mind inspired, the spirit lifted, where dreams are made manifest, dimensions traversed, and time itself becomes unimportant, as ideas and sensations form from the surroundings into ethereal edifices of grand arches that stretch over us into the heights, lending calm courage and the facility to see the beauty in the world. So it is in my mind and memory, and so I must make another visit soon. Isn't that lovely? What a beautiful thing to say about our study. Now to the news. I have not written you since last summer, at which time I was on my way to spend some time in Bath with my cousins. The Royal Crescent is now complete and has the clean classical look that the Bon Ton appreciate these days. It is indeed a very satisfying style, with its symmetry and high ceilings. I expect there will be even more here to take the stinky waters as the fashion, though I am at a loss as to what benefit they derive other to see and be seen. Indeed, I am sure that is what the Romans were doing here as well. Well, my friend, plus ça change. He does have a sense of humour. There are, as you well know, so many lovely green areas and parkland around Bath, and I was fortunate to have been invited to watch a match of that infernally long game of cricket, to which it seems, at times, no one knows the rules. These laws, as they call them, I am told, were expanded with the introduction of a leg before wicket rule, which is still much debated amongst the practitioners of the strategy. For my part, as a spectator, it certainly complicates the calls and slows down play further. As autumn came, I moved on to my apartments in Bristol. There I enjoyed watching the ships, as always, coming and going, and meeting with my agents and friends for the international happenings. From the Americas, one hears that Quebec is to be British governance, but how the administration will work is speculation until we have more details on that front. Well, we did see who was appointed governor in the Gazette, so it's moving along. Interesting place, Quebec. Perhaps we should make a trip there sometime. I had the opportunity to dine at a friend's with Lord North in attendance. Oh, our friend has met the Prime Minister, which made for some lively political debate, namely the problem with the Massachusetts colony and those others, including trade and rioting. It seems no one is in agreement on any of the policies at present, and Burke's friend Roberts put in some very convincing points favouring reconciliation. Now, a nice long paragraph. After Christmas spent at Aunt Bess's, I came to Portsmouth for the new year, where I will stay until spring, as the business dictates. Here I can have the news from anywhere in the world. I can see the shipping, the navy yards, and the weather in the channel moving through our world. And it always makes the long winter months pass more easily. Last week I found myself in a coffee house with Kendall, the watchmaker, whose replica of Harrison's clock, which you and I saw together some years ago at the Board of Longitude presentation, is currently, with James Cook and the Royal Society, circumnavigation aboard HMS Resolution and HMS Adventure. The crazed young Banks, who was denied by the Navy after causing such a fuss, well, he has been granted membership of the Dilettante Society. It's sour grapes for him, and quite sad at that, for he had been so enthusiastic before. Still, something might come of his life yet. On Sunday, I had Sam Johnson and James Boswell to tea, as they were keen to regale me with more stories of their Scottish adventure and their desire to publish the journals. They had met with Banks after his journey too, and exchanged notes. It seems Banks made some trips to the Isle of Wight and some of the Scottish islands, I think, the Hebrides. They must have met up there. It is hard to gauge their approval of him, but they seemed genuinely interested. Also, because because he had the artist Paul Sandby with him, whilst these two old men had only their pens. I think Samuel Johnson and James Boswell are indeed working on publishing the memoirs from their journeys around Scotland. I dare say they did not have a painter with them as Banks did. Oh, and our friend says, one of Paul Sandby's sketches is enclosed, given to me by James. Let's have a look at it. It looks like two young women with nice heeled pointed shoes carrying a basket with vegetables and fruit. And you can see one of them has a lovely hat on. And they have nice round arms and draped dresses. Not bad at all. The sun is now low in the sky, as is custom during these short winter days, and I must put out the candle and hurry to meet James and Roger Harris, with whom I will go over some of the year's figures and plans, and am hopeful to sup at the Dolphin, where some friends are meeting later. So, dear friend, I close with the hope that I shall see you again soon, with more news from the ports. I remain your loyal and devoted friend, H. And so, my friend, I hope you too have enjoyed our morning tea in the 18th century study, looking at the mail and the news, hearing the paper sounds, and drinking tea. I wish you a very calm and peaceful day with much success. So as we look out over the 18th century parkland with the birds and the rain, keep that calmness in your spirit. Be good to yourself. Be kind to others.